the Chi-Town experience on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the like.
After releasing 2 veteran players, the Chicago Bears are now sitting at $74.6 million in cap space, which is the 4th most going into the new league year. But Bears fans, just with a couple extra moves, Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears could have almost $100 million in cap space going into the new league year. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. So Bears fans, I wanted to come on here really quick on a Saturday and just talk a little bit more about the Chicago Bears cap space situation. Currently, the Chicago Bears are sitting at around $74.6 million in cap space going into the new league year, which is already 4th most in the National Football League. So money is not an issue for Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, and the Chicago Bears organization to really upgrade their roster with many areas of need. They can just stay put and still add a guy like Trey Smith, Drew Dahlman, maybe a guy like Khalil Mack. But on today's episode of Keek on the Mic, I am getting a little bit greedy because I feel like the Chicago Bears can still make a couple of extra moves to propel them to new heights and to give them even more money in cap space to spend to upgrade many areas of need on this roster. So on today's episode of Keek on the Mic, I'm going to give you guys a couple extra moves that Ryan Poles and the Bears can make to get them close to $100 million in cap space. And as I am going through these different scenarios, engage with me, comment down below in the comment section, and let me know some of the moves that you would make if you were in General Manager Ryan Poles' shoes. So the first move I would make to add to the Chicago Bears cap situation is cutting Ryan Bates. And I know I've talked about this before on many different episodes on Keek on the Mic. This would save the Chicago Bears $4 million in cap space. This was one of Ryan Poles' big additions on the offensive line when they gave up a 5th round pick to the Buffalo Bills to bring Ryan Bates to Chicago. Once again, when you look at Bates, he has a versatile lineman. He can play multiple different spots along the offensive line, but the guy only played 3 games in 2024. So, I think Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson may give Ryan Bates another chance, but why at this point? Just go ahead and say you're $4 million and go out and continue to upgrade the offensive line. We do not need guys that can consistently get injured on the O-line or on the roster in general, right? So I think I would cut Ryan Bates and save the $4 million. The next move I would make, Bears fans, is restructuring the contract of Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat had a down year, only having 5.5 sacks and 32 total tackles on the Chicago Bears defensive line, which is really not all his fault, really. When you look at it, he was the only one, our only edge rusher that we really have. There was no consistency on the other end of the defensive line. Darrell Taylor made plays here and there. You had Demarcus Walker only had 3.5 sacks in 2024. And then, of course, you had rookie Austin Booker, and he's a rookie. Still needs some time to develop. So Montez Sweat really didn't have a running mate. But all in all, Ryan Poles gave him a massive contract here in Chicago. I would really go to Montez Sweat and his agent and say, hey, look here, if you really want help and you really want a true running mate, let's restructure your contract and save $13.22 million in cap space. We can then use that money to go get you a legit running mate, right? Rather it's Khalil Mack, Josh Sweat, maybe making a trade for an edge rusher. Who knows, right? But we need extra cap space to make sure that we can actually give you a true running mate so you can have a big season next year, right? And once again, I don't regret Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears giving Montez Sweat that contract. He was really good when he played, the final 8 games last year for the Chicago Bears. But yes, he did have a down year this year with 5.5 sacks. And once again, it's not all his fault, but we can use that extra money that we used to restructure his contract to go get him a legit running mate in free agency. So you save $13.22 million by restructuring the Montez Sweat deal. And then the last one, I talked about this before too on many episodes of Keek on the Mic, restructuring Tremaine Edmunds' contract as well and saving another $6.8 million in cap space. Once again, Tremaine Edmunds has been up and down for the Chicago Bears. Hasn't been all bad, but also hasn't been all good either, right? And I have high expectations for Tremaine Edmonds under new defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen. I feel like Dennis Allen's going to allow him to really use his athleticism, and I think he's going to have a huge year for the Chicago Bears. But just like with the Montez Sweat situation, right? He signed a massive deal a couple of years ago in free agency. And I think if you just went to Tremaine Edmonds and to his agent said, hey, can we just restructure your contract a little bit, save some extra money in cap space, and really use that cap space to, upgrade our roster where we really need it. I think, hopefully Tremaine Edmonds will be a team player here. And I think that would be a huge move for the Chicago Bears to get, another $7 million in cap space. So Bears fans, with just 3 simple moves by cutting Ryan Bates, restructuring the contract of both Montez Sweat and Tremaine Edmonds, the Chicago Bears will be looking at almost $100 million in cap space, with $98.6 million to be exact. Now, money wouldn't be an issue for Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears. Not only would they have the money to add guys like Trey Smith, Drew Dahlman, and Kevin Zittler if they wanted to really upgrade the interior of the offensive line, they would also be able to add maybe a Khalil Mack, a Josh Sweat, a Chase Young. Maybe they want to go trade for Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett, so say, right? Now that you have the resources to really upgrade this roster, with $98 million in cap space, it would put them from 4th most in total cap space going into the new league year to possibly top 2 or 3 in cap space going into the new league year. So I think Ryan Poles is going to be creative here. Once again, I do expect him to try to probably restructure Tremaine Edmonds and Montez Sweat's contract. I'm not sure if Ryan Bates is going to be on the chopping block, because I know for a lot of Bears fans, Demarcus Walker was a huge surprise. So if Demarcus Walker can be cut, I definitely think Ryan Bates could be on the chopping block as well. But I think Ryan Poles is going to do everything in his power to continue to upgrade his cap situation so he can go out there and just spin big. Getting Trey Smith, getting Drew Dahlman would be huge for the interior. Adding Kevin Zittler to have that veteran presence on the offensive line, and then possibly adding a guy like Khalil Mack or Josh Sweat or even Chase Young on this defensive line as well, and still going out and drafting an edge rusher in the 2025 NFL draft as well. This offseason is going to be a huge offseason for Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears. He understands that he is under a tremendous amount of pressure here in Chicago, so he's going to do everything in his power to upgrade a lot of areas of need, because the Chicago Bears do have a lot of areas of need, not only on the offensive line and defensive line. Now they need to find a tight end too as well. So they have a lot of areas of need, and you need a lot of cap space to get that done. So which is a couple of these moves, restructuring and cuts, Bears fans, they could be looking at $100 million in cap space. So, Bears fans, do you agree with the moves that I gave to you guys today on today's episode of Keek on the Mic? And if you were the general manager of the Chicago Bears, what other cuts or contract restructures would you do to save more cap space for the Chicago Bears going into the new league year? And before I let you guys go on today's episode of Keek on the Mic, we also have a little bit more news in regards to the Myles Garrett situation. Once again, it's lion season. I'm not saying it's actually going to happen. I am just sharing with you guys what I read over social media and over a couple articles that I read. The Bears are now being called the front runners for the Myles Garrett trade. We talked about this many different times right here on the podcast. I don't think the Chicago Bears should actually trade for a guy like Myles Garrett. He's about to be 30 years old. Yes, you can say that he's a generational talent. He gets 12 to 17 sacks a year, multiple-time defensive player of the year. He would have a huge impact on this Chicago Bears defensive line. We do have a massive need at edge rusher. We need to give a legit running mate to Montez Sweat, and him and Montez Sweat together would be a lot of fun. But this was from Bill Barnwell of ESPN. He sees 3 teams as the likeliest landing spots for the All-Pro star, and Chicago is one of them. He said this, Bears fans: with $65 million in cap space, they could afford to add Garrett and still have the ability to address their offensive line in free agency. With an extra second-round pick still coming from the 2023 trade with the Panthers, they have extra capital if they did decide to make an offer for Garrett. If they believe Johnson can help bring along cost-controlled talent on offense, focusing their spending on the defense would make sense. Here's the thing. I feel like we have neglected the offense for far too long. You have to understand that there's already a lot of money in the Chicago Bears defense. Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon's about to get a massive contract extension. You have Montez Sweat as well. And then if you add a guy like Myles Garrett, who wants a contract extension, now you have to throw a lot of money at him as well. The Chicago Bears really need to focus on the offensive side of the football, fixing the interior of the offensive line. Yeah, Barnwell may be correct. Maybe we can go out and land Myles Garrett. It's gonna come at a cost. We're going to have to give up probably our first round pick, a second round pick, and then you're going to have to pay the guy. And maybe you are able to land Myles Garrett and still land a guy like Trey Smith, but that's going to be the offseason. That's all you're going to be able to afford, because once again, Myles Garrett still feels like he wants to be paid as one of the top defensive players in the National Football League. And once again, I feel like he deserves it. He is a generational talent. But the Chicago Bears have major needs on this roster. They need to address the offensive line. They do need to address the defensive line by adding another edge rusher. And once again, now with the Gerald Everett release, now the Chicago Bears need a tight end too behind Cole Kmet as well. So as much as I would love the idea of Myles Garrett and Montez Sweat teaming up on the same defensive line with Javon Dexter and Andrew Billings, it would be beautiful. Once again, I just think it comes at too much of a cost, and Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears have other areas of need. Once again, the Chicago Bears can go make that move, right, and just have Myles Garrett and still land Trey Smith possibly. But then that's all our money right there. I'd rather the Chicago Bears go out and sign Trey Smith, Drew Dahlman, and Kevin Zeitler, right, to fix the interior of the offensive line and still be able to land a guy like Khalil Mack or Joshua or even Chase Young. So you're fixing many areas of need. You're adding 3 or 4 quality players and not just adding 2 quality players. And once again, I said this before, when talking about the Myles Garrett situation, we are not a Myles Garrett player away from being a Super Bowl contender. So that's just how I feel on the situation. It's nice to kind of have an idea that we may possibly be a front runner. And I think if Ryan Poles made that move, I think it would mortgage the Chicago Bears' future. Of course, I would be happy with the idea of Myles Garrett, but then I would ask Ryan Poles, what's next? What's the plan? How are you going to fix the offensive line? Are you just going to focus on the NFL draft now? But at the same time, if we do go get Myles Garrett, you're probably not going to have a first or second round pick this year or a first round pick next year. So you are mortgaging the future for a 30-year-old edge rusher, which is he's great. Don't get me wrong. Once again, generational talent. He would bring 12 to 17 sacks to the Chicago Bears for the last couple of years of his career. But once again, then we would still have the same issues on the offensive line. So no, I do not think Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears are going to trade for Myles Garrett for the last time. But once again, I just wanted to share that little tidbit from Bill Barnwell of ESPN on how he felt like the Chicago Bears are the front runners. Give me your thoughts down below in the comment section. But as always, Bears fans, make sure you guys continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Geek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, be back for our all new Bears podcast right here on Geek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You ain't